He never thought a simple act of kindness would turn into something far bigger. One rainy night, a black father opened his door to a frightened girl standing alone in the dark. She looked lost, vulnerable, and desperate for safety. He didn't ask too many questions. He just offered her shelter for one night. But what he didn't know was that this girl carried a secret that would shake his world. She wasn't just anyone. She was the daughter of a millionaire. And soon, his life would never be the same again. David was a man of quiet strength, a black father who had weathered more storms in life than he could count. His days began before sunrise, working long hours at a local factory, and ended long after dark, helping his son with homework, cooking simple meals, and making sure the boy grew up with love even if money was scarce. Their small home wasn't much, peeling paint on the walls, a squeaky front door, and furniture that had seen better days, but it was a place of safety, warmth, and dignity. David carried pride in knowing that, despite the odds, he had built a world where his son felt cared for. That evening, the storm outside was relentless. Wind howled against the windows, branches scraped the roof, and the rain fell in heavy sheets, drowning out the city's usual hum. David had just finished cleaning up the kitchen and was about to collapse into his worn armchair when he checked on his son one last time. The boy was asleep, clutching his stuffed toy, breathing softly, untouched by the chaos outside. Then came the knock. At first faint, almost hesitant, then louder, urgent, cutting through the storm. David frowned. No one ever visited this late. He walked to the door, his heart thudding with unease. When he opened it, the sight froze him. A young girl stood in the doorway, drenched, trembling, her hair plastered to her face, eyes wide with fear. Her clothes clung to her thin frame, and she looked no older than 16. For a moment, David wondered if she had run away from somewhere, if danger was following close behind. But instinct silenced his questions. He grabbed a blanket from the couch, draped it over her shoulders, and guided her inside. The girl didn't say much, only whispered a quiet, "Thank you." David didn't press her. He knew what fear looked like, and whatever had driven her to his doorstep that night was something heavy. All that mattered now was that she was safe. What he didn't know, what he couldn't imagine, was that this one act of kindness would change not only her life, but his as well. The storm raged on through the night, but inside David's small home, the warmth of kindness shielded the girl from the chaos outside. She sat quietly on the couch, wrapped in the blanket he had given her, while David brewed a cup of tea in the kitchen. He noticed how she kept glancing toward the window, as if afraid someone might be watching, or worse, following her. David's son, half awake, peeked from his bedroom and whispered, "Daddy, who is she?" "Just someone who needs a safe place tonight," David reassured him softly, tucking him back into bed. The girl still hadn't said much. Her silence was heavy, as though words might give away something she wasn't ready to share. David sat across from her, his rough hands wrapped around his own mug. "You don't have to tell me anything," he said gently. "Just rest. You're safe here." For the first time, her eyes softened. She nodded, clutching the blanket tighter. Hours passed, and eventually exhaustion pulled her into sleep. But David couldn't sleep. Questions kept circling in his mind. Who was she? Why was she out in the storm alone? And why did her clothes, though now dirty and soaked, look like they had once belonged to someone wealthy? The material was expensive, the kind you'd never find in his neighborhood. Morning came, and with it an uneasy silence. David fixed breakfast, and when the girl finally stirred, he offered her food. She hesitated before eating, almost as if she wasn't used to such simple gestures of care. Finally, she spoke. "Thank you for not asking." Her voice trembled, and David could see the weight behind her words. She carried a secret, something bigger than a runaway's story. Later that day, when the storm had cleared, David offered to walk her part of the way, making sure she got wherever she needed safely. But as they stepped outside, a black car with tinted windows rolled slowly past the house. The girl froze, her face draining of color. David noticed the fear in her eyes, terror, as though whoever was inside that car knew exactly who she was. The car didn't stop. It just crept forward and disappeared down the road. But in that moment, David knew. This wasn't an ordinary girl. Whatever she was running from was far more dangerous and far more powerful than he had imagined. And the truth, when it came out, would turn his quiet life upside down. David thought the strange car had just been a coincidence, but the girl's nervous glances told him otherwise. She barely touched her food at dinner, her hands trembling every time a sound came from outside. David wanted to press her for answers, but something inside him whispered, "When she's ready, she'll tell you." Later, as his son slept soundly in the next room, David found the girl standing by the window, staring into the night. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. Finally, in a voice barely above a whisper, she spoke. "My name isn't what I told you," she confessed, though she had never really given him a name. I'm not just some runaway. My father, he's one of the richest men in this state." David froze, the weight of her words sinking in. A millionaire's daughter? In his small, broken-down home? It sounded unreal. She continued, her voice cracking. "I couldn't stay there anymore. Money, mansions, cars. It all looks beautiful on the outside, but behind those walls, it's a prison. I felt invisible, and when I left, no one cared, except the people who wanted to drag me back." Her tears spilled over, and David's chest tightened. Suddenly, the black car made sense. Whoever was inside wasn't just looking for a runaway, they were searching for a girl worth more than gold. Then a sharp knock shattered the silence. This time, it wasn't gentle. It was forceful, demanding. David's heart pounded as he stood in front of his door. Through the peephole, he saw two men in suits, cold eyes scanning the street. They weren't neighbors. They weren't police. They were looking for her. David turned to the girl, her face pale with terror. He had a choice: hand her over or protect her, risking everything in the process. For a man who had spent his life fighting just to survive, this was more than a decision. It was a test of his humanity. He whispered firmly, "Stay quiet," and turned back to the door. With steady hands, he told the men that no one had come by. His voice carried a calm strength, even though inside his heart was racing. After a tense pause, the men gave him a long, suspicious look before walking away into the night. When the car finally drove off, the girl collapsed into tears of relief. David sat beside her, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You're safe now," he said quietly. And in that moment, the girl realized she had found something money could never buy: genuine kindness, protection, and dignity. The next morning she left, but not without promising to come back one day. She told David that his simple act of compassion had changed the way she saw the world and her own life. For David, the night left him with a truth he'd never forget. Sometimes the smallest choices, offering shelter, giving warmth, can alter lives in ways we may never fully see. And for us, the question remains: how many times do we overlook a chance to show kindness, not knowing it might be the very thing that saves someone's life?